Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are on Monday, March 18th. We're going to take a look at CGC today. So with the recent news catalysts coming around, we've seen some big jumps. A little over 11% on Friday, another 20+% today. So I thought we would see if it does continue to get a tailwind and the bulls just get a grip on it, the news cycle and the catalysts are all in line and it keeps pushing some levels that it might come into contact with that'll be important. And then of course, if this catalyst falls apart, which keep in mind that is certainly possible, and if the whole news items and the political implications of all of this, if all that falls apart and this catalyst just kind of dissolves and it retraces these recent gains, I wanted to put in some support levels of where it might at least try to not retrace all the way and might try to catch some support. So let's start there because there's less to go off of because there's just not a lot of price action below this 371 where it finished today. But 352, 333, and $3 on the dot seem like pretty solid support levels to me. There's then this recent swing low of 275.5. So those are the ones that I'm going to keep an eye on. And of course, there may develop some additional granular levels in between there. Some of them are pretty far percentage loss apart. 33 cents at a stock of this price is a pretty big loss. And so there may develop some additional levels in between there, but I felt like these were the strongest ones that were already presented on the chart that I could try to glean. Now, the flip side of it, if it does continue to push, it's got to get through 386. It wicked off of that today, actually came and sort of tried to make a run toward this 430. What was the high today? 413. So yeah, sort of inching more toward that 430, but it couldn't quite make it there and then got exhausted out and then even lost this nearest in support level at that time, which would have been 386. So it's going to need to reclaim that. And then 430 comes into play, 450, 501, 530, 562. And there is still this gap that it used as the entry point as a near resistance level at that swing, but it gets into that gap at about 599. It would fill it at about 678. Now, not all gaps fill, not all gaps need to fill, not all gaps are created equal. So keep that in mind. But we're covering a pretty good distance here from $3 to 678. So let's see where it goes. And, I hope to at least cover enough ground to get us some wiggle room, if you will. Now, a bunch of triggers and fires. So we had a trigger and fire back here, pushed it up where it caught some hard resistance at the upper bound of the channel and then pushed down and ultimately sold off. Another trigger down here as it was at the mid-range, brief fire, and then a longer trigger, which resulted in a bigger move down. That brought it from about, at that time, say 423 or so, down to that 276. So big percentage drawdown there, so good call by the TTM squeeze indicator. And for the most part, in this recent range, you had a little bit of a bullish push up here. You had a long baseline there in the histogram, but mostly just sort of wave after wave of bearish momentum. And right now, the bearish momentum getting mighty close to the baseline. So we'll see if the recent price action is able to sooner than later kill off that remaining bearish momentum and get it back to the baseline like this, and then see if it's able to get something more impressive than this bullish momentum on the histogram going. And, again, today, wicking off on this view, wicking off of the upper bound of the channel. So that upper bound right now is situated at 395. The lower bound, for what it's worth, 265. The interim, 330, the mid-range of the channel. So if it's going to, continue to draw down in this volume, even picking up more today. Obviously, I think that news came in kind of late on Friday, if I remember. So the volume just didn't have time to pour in. So most of that coming in today. We'll see how the volume stays. We'll see which way it wants to turn, or if it does just sort of, say we've already gained a lot percentage-wise in a short period of time. We're going to sort of like hold tights and kind of move relatively sideways until there's another clear motion in this catalyst. But we'll see. If it does that, the mid-range then coming in to be a dominant factor. If it does dip, of course, you'd want the lower bound to hold. Of course, it's going to depend on the reason that it's dipping and how sort of heavy that catalyst is. And of course, if it gets out of the upper bound of the channel, we'll see what it looks like. And if it can sustain some motion outside of the upper bound of the channel for quite some time, that would be sort of a best case scenario for the bulls. We'll see how that develops. Obviously, most or all of these stocks are long distressed, right? So back here in this time period is in the 20s. And so we're talking about it recently being 276. So trying to not get too far ahead of myself, but this does feel like potential for a real catalyst. I'm curious to see if this whole sort of negotiation, if you want to call it that, or whatever it is, if the whole thing falls apart and doesn't go anywhere, and what the ramifications of that are, versus if it does get some legs and continues on a bullish trajectory news-wise and price action-wise, what does even recovery look like at this point? Would it have to get all the way back up to 20? Would 5 be good? Would 10 be good? That's sort of the question. But if that even comes into play, we can sort of tackle that when we get there. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.